Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. This is our 131st episode on January 19th, 2023. My name is Andy Zee. I'm the host of the show, coming to you from Los Angeles, California.
And my name is Sunsara Taylor. I'm the co-host of the Revolution Nothing Less show. We begin today's program with this.
Brutal and murderous white supremacy. Male supremacy and other oppressive relations. The deepening crisis in society and the world overall, including the constant wars and the continuing destruction of the environment. All this cannot ultimately be resolved in any positive way within the confines of the system that rules in this country and dominates in the world as a whole. The system of capitalism imperialism. Under the rule of this system, all this will only get worse.
Under the rule of this system, all this will only get worse, and it is, and rapidly. Are you paying attention to how profoundly that is so? This is the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, and we mean what our name says. This is a show about and for a real revolution, to overthrow this system that cannot solve any of the pressing problems humanity faces. This is a show about the world and for a new, far better society brought into being by that revolution. This radically new and far better world brought about through an actual revolution is for the emancipation of all humanity all over the world. A declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution available at our website, revcom.us, puts it straight.
A real revolution is not playing around with a few changes that leave this system in place and in power while benefiting only a small number. A revolution means a force of millions drawn from many different parts of society and organized for an all-out fight to overthrow this system and replace it with a radically different and much better economic and political system, a socialist system based on meeting the needs of the people and carrying forward the fight for a communist world where there will finally be an end everywhere to the exploitation, oppression, and destruction of the environment that is built into this system of capitalism imperialism. Anything less than this, anything less than this revolution will completely fail to deal with the root of all the problems or lead to the actual solution.
Today's RNL show will dive into the recent wanton police murders in cold blood of 3 mentally disturbed Black and Latino men in Los Angeles. Wanton murders. Wanton means cruel, unprovoked, merciless, deliberate. These murders were that and worse. This shows that despite the fact that several reforms that people marched and fought for and were being implemented during these incidents, this changed nothing. These men's lives were stolen, but this time in one incident preceded by some words of sensitivity. Each cold-blooded killing was filmed from 3 angles by the pigs' body cams that were supposed to end such horror. These cops' opening words of concern were but prelude to the merciless, racist murders of 3 men who needed care and help, not an execution.
Today's RNL show will bring alive the reality that white supremacy and male supremacy and all the oppression meted out by this system day after day, week after week, year after year, all this cannot be ended by working within this system. It is the system of capitalism imperialism whose very nature requires this and all the other forms of oppression that rain down on humanity around the globe. In addition to digging into these police murders today, in our main segment of today's episode, later I will be speaking to the upcoming 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade and the painful reality that the right to abortion that Supreme Court ruling established 50 years ago has been overturned and taken away. We could also speak about the same with regards to immigrants, with Biden doubling down at the war at the border. Or we could talk about the war in Ukraine, where the US-led NATO bloc is now sending in tanks using the Ukrainian people as cannon fodder in the unjust US-Russia proxy war. This raises the risk of an all-out inter-imperialist war with great danger for humanity. But these are topics for past and future shows.
A better world really is possible. There is a vision and a concrete blueprint for a radically new society conceived and written by the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian in the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic in North America. This Constitution is the plan and the governing principles and structures for, as Sunsara read earlier, a, quote, radically different and much better economic and political system, a socialist system, end quote, one that is on the road to human emancipation. There is no other constitution, past, present, or conceived of for the future that has such a broad view of the scope for the lives of the masses of people. And no leader other than Bob Avakian, who has developed the new communism, which is itself at its core a scientific approach for the emancipation of humanity all over the world. And you can see for yourself Bob Avakian's vision, the science, his morality, his heart and soul for revolution in his interviews on the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show.
Not only is this revolution necessary, but this is possible. Of tremendous significance right now, Bob Avakian has analyzed that we are in a rare time when this revolution is even more possible. This is so because all of society is sharply divided. Those who rule over us cannot resolve these sharpening divisions within the framework and the norms that people have been conditioned to accept. Now, Bob Avakian became a revolutionary in the 1960s, and unlike so many others, he never gave up on making revolution. And through years of work and struggle, he has developed the strategy for how we can make this revolution real, how we could really bring this system down. And today, he has forged a roadmap for how we can seize on this rare time to make this a reality. This rare time must not be thrown away.
For that to happen depends on you getting with this revolution now. We need to go to work to bring forward a revolutionary people, first in the thousands and then in the millions, from among the most bitterly oppressed and from all parts of society, to impact the whole country. This can change how people see things and how every institution has to respond. Bringing forward this revolutionary people will require tremendous struggle with the people, the very people who need to be a part of this. Listen to what Bob Avakian says in his talk, Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating. And after playing this, we're going to go right to the heart of our program on the recent police murders here in Los Angeles.
It is the responsibility of everyone who recognizes the profound need for revolution and the rare possibility in a time like this to actually make revolution, to wage a tireless and at times fierce struggle to win more and more people to make a radical rupture with the confining and degrading terms of this system, and to take up and act on the revolutionary orientation and motivation that is put forward in the Declaration and Call. Instead of staying in your lane and going for self,
I stay in my lane.
Always put you first.
While this system is moving to even more decisively crush any hope for a world worth living in, people need to be looking at the bigger picture, focusing on the greater interests of humanity and the possibility for a far better world, and acting to make this a reality. Instead of finding excuses to go along with the way things have been, standing apart from or even bad-mouthing the revolution.
They are cult. They are a fucking cult.
People need to get with this revolution and not throw away the rare opportunity to be part of bringing something much better into being. Instead of lashing out with individual acts of frustration or attempts to take on this system with small, isolated forces that have no chance of succeeding, people need to pour their anger and their hatred of injustice into building a movement of millions that could have a real chance to defeat this system and make a real revolution. Instead of fighting and killing each other, what people need to be doing now is uniting to defend each other, opposing all unjust violence, not launching attacks on anyone, but at the same time, not allowing the police or civilian fascist thugs to wantonly brutalize and murder people. And people need to do this as part of building up the forces for revolution. Instead of snarking and sniping at each other and being divided by identities, people should be working to unite everyone from every part of society who can be united in the fight against oppression and injustice, with the goal of putting an end to this system that is the source of this oppression and injustice. Instead of being a tail on the Democratic donkey, with its attempt to keep this monstrous system going and to deal with the growing fascist danger by relying on the normal procedure of this system and doomed efforts to heal the divisions that are deepening every day, people need to work for the revolution that is urgently needed and deal with the fascist danger as part of doing that.
The beginning days of this year in Los Angeles have brought with it a painful reminder, yet again, of why we call this the Revolution Nothing Less show. Here in Los Angeles, the LAPD began this year with 3 brutal murders. Takar Smith, Keenan Anderson, and Oscar Leon Sanchez. My name is Noche Diaz. I'm a spokesperson for the Revolution Clubs.
And my name is Michelle Xai, and I'm a leader in the Revolution Club here in Los Angeles. And this year, we kicked off the year by taking up these brutal murders and responding to them and bringing to people what they need to understand in terms of where this is coming from and how to put an end to this. Revolution, nothing less. To be part of taking this up and fighting this as part of getting organized for an actual revolution to put an end to murder by police.
We've gotten questions from viewers of the Revolution Nothing Less show and from people on the street. People asking why this goes on, what can be done about it. People telling us they think it's never going to stop and there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to address that, but before we do, watch these videos. Don't look away. Don't tune out. Don't tell yourself you've seen it all already. Take a good, hard look at what we are facing and what needs to be ended.
LAPD off to a violent start of the new year.
A lethal start to the new year.
Three.
All 3 incidents happening in the first 3 days of the new year.
35-year-old Takar Smith.
His wife told police that he was mentally ill.
Taser! Another taser. Second taser. Stop it! Keep on taser. Keep it going.
35-year-old Oscar Sanchez.
Relatives say that he had had a mental health crisis and officers had been warned.
Oscar! Hey, does he know with the police?
31-year-old Keenan Anderson.
Officers said he was exhibiting erratic behavior. He was then tased repeatedly before being taken into custody. Anderson was at the hospital when he went into cardiac arrest and died.
Please don't do this, sir! Please! You're trying to do it for me. You're trying to do it. Stop it. Stop it, I'm gonna tase you. You're trying to kill me. You're trying to kill me. Leave me alone.
We're tired of it.
This racism has to stop.
I wanted the police to help me, and they failed.
We can't keep calling the law out to come out here and kill us like that.
This is completely unnecessary. There's no reason these men should be dead. Now listen to Bob Avakian about a very similar situation in 2014 in a dialogue with Cornel West, speaking after Michael Brown was murdered by the pig Darren Wilson.
Listen to the police and what they tell you. Well, if officer, notice how respectfully he's treated. Officer Wilson. He's a thug, a murderer. Officer Wilson. Well, if Officer Wilson is indicted, that's going to make it very difficult for police officers in these difficult situations where their life is on the line. Let's translate that into real terms. What they're saying is, if we can't go out and shoot down these youth in cold blood over and over again, we cannot and will not do our job. Because that is their job. And let me ask you this. If that is not their job, then why do they do it over and over and over and over again? And why are they never punished for doing it over and over and over again? Because this is what this system needs them to do. Because it has a whole section of people in the inner cities that it can't even profitably exploit anymore. So it treats them as so much human garbage. Instead of being able to and moving to provide them with work and a decent life, it pens them in the ghettos, encourages them to kill each other, and then kills them on top of all that. Look, some things can be done right away, just like some things will take a lot longer. As soon as this system is brought down and a new revolutionary system is in place, the police will not go out shooting down the youth in the streets. Right then and there, no more. Now that's a fact. And if somebody is crazed and does do it, they will never be in a position to do it ever again. It will not be this whole process of justifiable homicide. And as I've said before, you will still need forces to protect the security of the people in a new society. Everything is not going to change in one instant. But you can have very different kind of forces protecting the security. Look, quiet as it's kept, we've got security in this room. The church is providing security. Other people are providing security. Is anybody here afraid that they're going to be shot down by the people providing security for this event we're having? I hope not, and I believe not. Why? Because they have a whole different orientation, and they're part of a different process. When you get a whole different system, then as I've said before, if you have there are still going to be people who, have mental problems, go crazy, go off, or so. How do you handle that? Let's say we're the people's police going out, and you run into a situation like that. Our orientation has to be that we would sooner die ourselves than wantonly kill one of the people, even one, or maybe especially one, who's mentally disturbed. That has to be our orientation.
That's right. That's right.
If you're part of the people's security, if you're part of the people's security that's there to really serve and protect the people, then you put your life on the line, and if you have to, you lay your life down instead of and before you would ever be thinking of brutalizing any of the people. But that is not going to happen under this system, And that's why we got to get rid of this system. And that's why we have to be very serious about the question of, can we have a revolution? And if we can, how do we make that revolution? We have to, look, this is, it's kind of ironic, but, once again, Clyde Young used to say, one of his favorite sayings was, this is serious as a heart attack. And this is very serious. We need humor. We need play. We need joy. But at the same time, that humor, that play, that joy is all part of something that's very, very serious. It is the lives and the future of the masses of people around the world, which is the most precious thing of all to those of us who want and are fighting for a different world. And so we have to proceed in that kind of a way. And that's why I put the emphasis on being scientific, because being scientific just means understanding and working to understand the world the way it really is. It doesn't mean you'll ever understand everything or everything completely correctly. We're always going to make mistakes and have shortcomings, but we have to really strive to understand the world the way it is. And if we do, then we can see where the possibilities actually lie, not out of wishful thinking, but out of a scientific approach, to know that we actually can have a different kind of world, yes, a different kind of society, and yes, with a different kind of force that really is about protecting and serving the masses of people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bob Avakian is talking about a whole different way we can live. In a moment when people are agonizing over these murders, this is the message the Revolution Club took up and brought to people out in Los Angeles. And here's some of how that went.
And we're here to talk to everybody that has seen the brutal murder of Takar Smith, of Keenan Anderson, of Oscar Leon Sanchez by the LAPD. We're here to say no more. We got to get organized now to make a revolution to put an end to this. All right, let's go. Amen.
I think that was amazing when she said she spoke the truth and facts.
Yes, she did. Brothers and sisters, we don't need this pig police to continue to carry out murder against our brothers and sisters like they did Keenan Anderson, like they did Takar Smith, like they did Oscar Leon Sanchez. We gotta get organized for revolution to bring their whole system down. No more murders by police. No more these pigs displaying courage as they murder our brothers and sisters.
All they do is kill us. Get away with it.
You just never know when you get put over the police if you're gonna lose your life or not. You don't know if you're safe. I'm scared. I'm a black woman. I served in the military and everything. I still do not feel safe. I risk my life for this country. Do I feel protected as a black woman? No, I do not. For my brothers, I feel very sad and unsafe for them. I call them all the time to make sure that they safe. That could have been my brother. It could have been me. It's just very sad. It's been happening too often. Ever since George Floyd. And it was like the same exact thing from George Floyd until now. It's very sad. My heart feels for them. It really does.
We have a strategy, to make revolution. The palm card that we gave you, that's Bob Avakian right there. That's the leader of the revolution, This is somebody who actually has brought forward a real strategy for how we can bring forward millions and how we can actually defeat the system when the time comes, right? So you should look into that. You should watch these interviews, which is on the RNL Show on YouTube, right? You should watch that and you should spread it. And if you're serious about this and you want to get with this, then sign up with us right now. Give us a way to reach you and we can keep talking about this. And there's ways to act now, but we got to stop this shit. That's the point,
We're here today to declare a message received and a message delivered. First, the message received. New year, same system. 72 hours. Takar Smith, Keenan Anderson, Oscar Leon Sanchez, dead by cops. Men who needed help, who were experiencing mental health emergencies. The LAPD showed what kind of help this system has for people. And let's get this out of the way right now, because every time this happens, every time, year after year, people are told this is how we're going to stop it. Body cams. Well, now we can see in 2, 3, 4 different angles as they murdered Takar, Keenan, and Oscar. More black and Latino cops. They were there too. Better training for the police. Watch these videos. See how professional and very well trained all of these police officers are as they methodically close in and end the lives of each of these men. More black elected officials. Got that too. Black mayor, progressive district attorney, black vice president. Same system. How long? I'll tell you. Until we bury this system that these police enforce. New year, same system. But this year, the revolution is putting itself on the map in a whole different way. And this year, we are declaring, not only do we need a revolution to overthrow this system once and for all, we're going to everyone who is tired of seeing this and saying, look, these police are not going to stop, they must be stopped. The system they enforce must be ended. And it is up to us to do that. And the people have a right and a responsibility to defend each other from the illegal and illegitimate violence that is carried out by the armed and sanctioned thugs in badges all across this country. This year, we show people there is something worth living for and fighting for. And it's time to stop looking for someone else to do it for us. Our leader, Bob Avakian, says instead of fighting and killing each other, what people need to be doing now is uniting to defend each other. Opposing unjust violence, not launching attacks on anyone, but at the same time not allowing the police or civilian fascist thugs to wantonly brutalize and murder people. And people need to do this as part of building up the forces for revolution. Instead of snarking and sniping at each other and being divided by our identities, people should be working to unite everyone from every part of society who can be united in the fight against oppression and injustice, with the goal of putting an end to this system that is the source of this oppression and injustice. So we are calling on the people who have the hard life under the gun and under the boot, the youth who have had to live in this hard life and have become hardened themselves, to step into and join the revolution, become part of the force that is standing up to defend the people from this unjust violence, and as part of preparing to bring this whole system down and to bring into being a new society. Because look, it's not that difficult. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard. You don't need a whole lot of training, a whole lot of specialty to go into a situation and put your life on the line to protect the people, and sooner take a bullet and die yourself than to wantonly murder one of the people. It's not that complicated. But it cannot be done under this system because they have no use and no future for black people, for Latinos, and millions of people. Watch again those videos. Look at Takar, at Keenan, at Oscar, and listen. In their voices, in their hearts, in their bones, they all know they have a death sentence hanging over their head that could be carried out at any minute. And you watch those videos as it goes on to that inevitable conclusion. How long will we watch on and let these conclusions conclude this way? No more. Sisters and brothers and others, it is time this year that the people who are tired of living this way, the people who went home after all the beautiful uprising of 2020 and told themselves there's nothing that could be done. It's time that they see that there is something worth living and fighting and dying for. Not the way this system wants us to, but going out fighting to bring into being a different future. Because they keep on killing, keep on slaying, keep on preying on the masses of people. And it's time we stood up and started organizing, started transforming the people, started fighting the power and getting ready to bring them and their system down. This is what we are here to declare and what we are going out to build from here forward. This year, they began with the message and the declaration. 2023, new year, same system. This year, we declare revolution, nothing less. It's time now to fight the power and transform each other to get ready for an actual revolution.
What demands what do you think about the demands out there? Black Lives Matter was speaking earlier. What do you think about them?
There's two patterns that we're especially highlighting. Look, you all know the pattern of the murder and brutality and terror by the police. But the two patterns we want to highlight today is the constant ways in which every time this goes down, people are led down dead-end pathways that lead them to impotence and meaningless reforms. Our power is not in fighting for crumbs, is not getting elected officials, it is not getting policy changes. We have to actually get to a whole different system. What we need to change is the pattern of the people who are misled this way, looking to leaders who have no answers and no solutions, or looking to the system to do what it cannot, will not, and has told you it does not want to do. You heard Biden bray on about fund the police, fund the police, fund the police. Forget everything you've been told. Forget everything that you've learned growing up in this country. Think about it for 1 second. If you had an epidemic year after year after year of your police killing and killing and killing, and it went on unstopped, and millions of people hated it and rose up in rebellion after rebellion after rebellion, year after year, decade after decade, what rational society would not bring everything to a halt and say this has to stop and nothing can continue to go on until this is stopped? You cannot have the violent enforcers of this system who are supposed to represent law and order executing people in the streets, chasing down mentally ill people in the streets, going into abandoned buildings to murder a man who's having an episode. This cannot go on and on. You don't have that in this society because they need their police doing that. And they tell you every single time, oh, it's more complicated and, the cops have a hard job. Give me a break. The pattern we have to change is the people who see this pattern need to stop falling for it over and over again, going down dead ends. Yes, people need to protest, rebel, and sometimes demands for reforms are an important part of that, but the fact that this system can't change is not a reason to settle for something smaller. It's a reason to go for something bigger. Revolution, nothing less. So now you've seen not only the gruesome video of the bloody murders by the LAPD, you've seen Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader, cut to the bone about the problem as well as the way we could be living a whole different way through an actual revolution. And you've seen the RevComs step out and put the challenge to people to become part of a force that is fighting the power and transforming people for revolution. So Michelle, let's get further into that. At the top of this segment, we talked about the question that we got from the viewers about how could things really change? What can we really do? Because it feels like nothing ever does. So what would you say to that in terms of what can people actually be part of doing now?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if there was a force that was out there that, going up against all the ways that people think there's nothing that can be done about this, right? That see video after video, that see name after name of people that are brutally cut down at the hands of these pigs, right? If there was a force that was serious, disciplined, and organized, that was getting out there and declaring, no more. We're not going to allow these pigs to continue to murder people. right? And this was a force that was getting organized for an actual revolution, not as some alternate, defense force, within the very same system, but actually as part of getting out there and impacting and bringing forward those millions that are going to be required for the time when we can go up against this system and bring it down, right? Through an actual revolution, right? But to have that, people are going to have to break with a lot of shit, right? We're going to people, we're bringing them into this revolution for people to actually get into the leadership and take up the leadership of Bob Avakian. You're going to need to become a student of Bob Avakian. And the very first, step is getting into these interviews, right? These Bob Avakian interviews, right? That have been shown in the RNL show, right? I myself, being a leader in the revolution, am continuing to return to these interviews, right? This is how we struggle with people. This is how people get a sense of what this revolution is all about, how we struggle with each other, right? How we understand why we're in the situation that we're in and what actually needs to be done to get rid of this system and what kind of society we're going to be bringing into being once we bring this whole monstrosity of a system down, right? So this is what it means, right? And this is a call for everybody who's sick and tired of this ongoing murder after murder of our brothers and sisters. You got to get with this revolution. There's nothing else that's going to put an end to murder by police until and unless we end this system of capitalism, imperialism that needs their pigs to brutalize and murder our brothers and sisters.
I think that's a really important and inspiring vision you painted. But I do want to come back and reinforce for people, this depends on what you do now, because the hopelessness that is out there, it can change, but people actually have to step forward and be the firsts. And there's not a chasm to step forward into when you are the first. There are principles. We do have organization. You will learn these points of attention. You will learn how to be an emancipator of humanity. There is serious leadership. But history is moving forward, and what future we get is up to us. And things can get even worse, or we could seize this moment and change everything. Look back at those videos, not just of the murders, but of the people who had the sparkle of hope in their eyes when they encountered the revolution coming through. Think about what that represented in potential. When you think about the millions and millions of people like Oscar Sanchez or Takar Smith or Keenan Anderson, or people who see that, have never experienced anything like that, but cannot stand to live in a world like this. I know what it's like to swallow your anger and to just seethe and feel like there's nothing you can do. That's why it makes such a difference that there is not only a force, but there is serious, scientifically grounded leadership. There is what Bob Avakian has done to look at how this can actually be ended and a road carved out to true emancipation through an actual revolution. When you're doing something like what we're talking about, going up against these vicious, violent monsters, you ask yourself all kinds of questions. Is this worth it? Should I just be thinking about myself? If something happens to me, will it have counted for anything? We can answer yes, because we do have a way out for humanity, not dead ends that people have been trapped in forever. We have something that is real, and this year, that needs to be on the map and made real for millions of people, and you have to be part of the first who are stepping into and being part of a force doing that. Not only in how we act amongst each other in the face of this injustice, but also in the way that we get out to people this real hope. So to end this segment, I want you to watch a segment from the interviews done with Bob Avakian on this show. You get up close and personal with this revolutionary leader. You see and you feel the heart and soul and someone who is hardcore for revolution. This is what millions of people must know is out there. And millions of people must know they can be part of connecting up with if they've got that heart to fight for something really worth fighting for.
This is your mission. This is your mission, to put revolution on the map. Not all this garbage that people think is, want to think is the way to go, all this, I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind and dogging down the women and all this bullshit. Put revolution on the map. Put it on the map by standing up against the system. You want to do something that takes heart? Take on this system. Stand up against this system and all of its atrocities and build up the forces of revolution so that we can create the conditions where we can have millions of people ready to go for the whole thing. Like similarly to what you see in Iran now. I mean, I don't know where that'll go. You need leadership for it to go to revolution. Our comrades there, the communists, in Iran, the people who've taken up a new communism, they're striving and struggling to win leadership and give leadership in that situation. But that kind of massive upheaval, you have that, and then you have an organized leadership with a scientific method and strategy. Then you can direct all that toward the actual struggle to bring this system down, and you can actually have a basis to defeat and disintegrate what are now very powerful institutions of armed enforcement of this system. It's not where we're at now, but that's the mission that people need to take up. And all these youth in particular who are caught up in going at each other need to turn around, lift their heads, not act in the way the system wants them to act, not act in the way that it tells them is the only thing that they're good for, but act as emancipators of humanity. And act to get rid of all the madness that they are put through, and people just like them all over the world are put through, which is the reason why they act in such crazy ways, because they don't see a way out of that. And we, with a scientific method and strategy, have to provide them, give them the way out of that, and nothing less than that.
Forced motherhood is female enslavement. Make Roe's reversal a rallying cry for a real revolution. This Sunday, January 22nd, will be the 50th anniversary of the 1973 Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade, which established nationwide protections for women's right to abortion. This year, it will be a bitter pill, because last year, this right was overturned by the illegitimate Trump-packed fascist Supreme Court. Already, well over 100,000 women and girls have been forced to have children against their will. Have you let yourself feel this? Stop and really contemplate the dehumanization of having your body hijacked and having the lifelong emotional, economic, social, and physical consequences of having a child thrust upon you without your consent. Forced motherhood is female enslavement. Have you let yourself confront that this is just the beginning? This January 22nd, throngs of woman-hating fascists will not only be gloating over their victory, but actively mobilizing to take this attack further. Their aim is a full-blown theocratic Handmaid's Tale nightmare. And already they are moving to ban abortion nationwide, to target birth control and the rights of LGBTQ people, and much more. Have you let yourself think critically about the strategy you are being fed? And let's be honest, too often embracing by the Democratic Party and the so-called leaders of the so-called pro-choice movement? They straight up refused to mobilize any serious fight in the streets against the overturning of Roe. Some of them even attacked the one group, Rise Up for Abortion Rights, that did lead tens of thousands into the streets to wage this fight. And now, these so-called leaders are pushing a state-by-state strategy aimed at protecting abortion rights in a few places. Never mind the millions of women left behind, Never mind that any state protections could be reversed in a heartbeat by the fascist Supreme Court. Never mind that this state-by-state strategy accepts and legitimizes the outrageous, illegitimate notion that women's rights are not fundamental and that they should just be left up to each area to decide as a matter of taste. Will you continue to go along with this? The fury of millions of women and everyone who cares about justice, your fury needs to be unleashed now in the streets in mass struggle to demand legal abortion on demand and without apology nationwide. We need to draw inspiration from the brave women and the people of Iran. A society that enslaves women should never be allowed to function as normal. And have you ever asked why? Why do we have to live in a society where Dark Ages theocrats, several of them appointed by a fascist thug who openly bragged about sexually assaulting women, get to sit on the high court and dictate the lives of women? Why is it that everywhere around this globe, women are being beaten and raped, stalked and degraded, turned into sexual objects, pimped out, or shrouded and punished if they have sex at all? And why has it been this way for thousands of years? And have you ever let yourself dream, I mean really dream, of a world where women could walk this earth free of harassment and brutality, free of the fear of rape or any form of shame or control over their bodies and reproduction, where all the forms of oppression of women and of other oppressed people are being uprooted and overcome? Have you ever wondered what it would take to make this world real? Well, there are answers to these questions, liberating answers, and there is a whole different, radically better way we could be living. All of this can be found in the work and the leadership of the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, and he brings this alive with heart and passion and penetrating science in the must-watch interviews he did recently on this, the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show. In these interviews, Bob Avakian compares the society we live in to a house, and I want to pursue this metaphor. The culture and the laws that govern our lives are the rooms that we live in. In one room, women are being abused and degraded. In another, black and brown people are being murdered by police. In yet another, the planet is on fire. Down the hall, reactionary wars are grinding up lives, and at every window and door, immigrants are being walled out or locked up and deported. At times, after enormous struggle by the people, this system will put a fresh coat of paint on the walls of one of these rooms. Maybe they'll be forced to grant the right to abortion. Maybe they'll be forced to end a war or to elect some black officials. But with time, this paint starts to peel. Inevitably, the stench of the rot at the foundation seeps up through the floorboards. The rot at the foundation of this house is the system of capitalism imperialism. It is a system based on vicious exploitation on every corner of this planet. It is a system that has all the oppression I spoke of built into its foundation. This is why it requires institutions of violent repression to enforce it. This is why it requires backwards ideas to justify it. No cosmetic repair can lead to any lasting good in this house. This house must be torn down. Its foundation must be dug up, and an entirely new house, a new system, must be built in its place. We need a revolution. And this is urgent. It is also eminently possible. Ironically enough, it is more possible right now, when things are being radically reshaped in a fascist way, when rights are being ripped back, when the country is being split in half from the bottom to the top, when things like this terrible attack can force people to question the way things have been and whether they have to stay that way. Now is the time to learn about this revolution by digging deeply into these interviews from Bob Avakian. Find out why such a radical overturning and uprooting is urgently necessary. Find out what this revolution is all about and what we could build on the foundation of a new, non-exploitative system and new relations, and spread these interviews to others. As you do, step out of your comfort zone and challenge others to do the same. Unleashing the fury of millions and millions of women and girls is the only way to beat back the escalating attack on abortion rights. And it is a crucial part of building up the strength to win a whole different world. Make this the 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Make the reversal of this fundamental right of women a rallying cry for a real revolution. Legal abortion on demand and without apology nationwide and everywhere. Forced motherhood is female enslavement. Break the chains. Unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for a real revolution.
So I want to welcome back to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, Dr. Phil Rice, a renowned emergency room physician and friend of the revolution. Phil has made it an important addition to every season of the RNL show. And today we're going to be speaking with Phil not so much about medicine to sustain and heal our bodies and minds, but the medicine society needs for a real revolution. And perhaps that will have a beneficial effect on people's mental and physical well-being. So what we want to talk about, Phil, is this recent fund drive that actually we're still in the middle of. Our goal is $100,000, and we just had a live stream a couple Sundays ago in which we raised the $20,000 goal for that day, and you played a very important and big role in doing that. So I was wondering if you could discuss some of what you did. I understand that you discussed the fund drive with other professionals, and in those discussions you mentioned how important these interviews that Bob Avakian did with Sunsara and myself on the RNL show. So I was hoping that you could maybe first bring out what was the most important lesson that you learned in taking up this fund drive?
Well, there are several things that I kind of picked up on. Is that I decided to change gears a little bit after listening to all three interviews. And the gear that I changed was, instead of going to where most of the activist professors were, I went to just the professors and people and doctors that I knew on a casual basis and who I'd either gone to school with, or people who weren't doctors but other professionals who were in my circles that I never really considered because they weren't out demonstrating. They were never politically active, and kind of had, for some reason, had written them off, which was kind of the opposite of what BA was talking about. So I said, let me go and talk to all these people. And I started emailing them, and they started emailing me back about, about the interviews and talking about, this is interesting, or that, can you send me clips because it's too long, or that, geez, never saw this side of him. And I think that I learned a lot in terms of who I went out to. So one of the big lessons was enlarging my circle, and I realized I had thousands of people that I've known for many years, and that they needed to not be written off, and we needed to actually reach out to them, not just the people who were active politically and that are in the demonstrations, and even though you do go to them too. But I decided to reach out in a much broader fashion.
That's it.
Thing, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Second thing.
No, the second thing that really comes out is that you don't have to know and explain what he's saying. You just have to let him say it. He's 1,000 times better than what you're going to end up being. So my point that I was trying to, even when I was talking to these people, and they were like, yeah, I kind of agree with this part, but I can't tell other people. I can't explain it like he's. It's like, no. In fact, don't try and do it. Let them look at the interviews themselves, and he'll do all the work for you. That's the key. That's the other key thing.
So that was advice that you gave to people to take these interviews and spread them themselves. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Don't think that you have to watch it, even though you do need to watch it 4 or 5 times and try and memorize it or try to give the interview yourself. Let him do the interview.
I was wondering if you can recall even the gist of any comments that people made, especially some of these people who hadn't been so much in your activist circles when they listened to these interviews, and what made them consider even donating or spreading the interviews.
The reactions ranged from, I think this is very dangerous. This could be suicidal if we don't win. And talking about what are our chances of winning, which I thought was actually a good thing in the sense that they were considering the whole idea that it's possible. And what factors lead into whether you have the basis to win and whether you don't. Because one person basically said they outnumber us. And I said, well, that may be what it seems like now, but we don't know what our forces will be when that window of opportunity actually presents itself. And so getting into some of that was important. I think that some of the younger people basically that I touched base with, they talked about whether it was possible to get people to listen. And if they could listen, they think that they would have a chance. We would all have a chance. If people don't listen because they're all into their gigs, into their worlds, the world of their micro worlds, as they would call them, then maybe we don't have a chance. And how do you break into their consciousness to get them to watch it? And they were speaking a little frustration with about some of their own circles.
How do you pose to people that without your support, people aren't going to know about this, that this is not a known thing? It's just by a coincidence of the work that you do, Phil, that they know you and you're able to reach them. But we're launching a campaign to do advertising and do all kinds of promotional work and sustain a force of people out in the field in different parts of the country, but especially here in LA. How do you ask them, though, to contribute right off the bat and to send in, to encourage others to do the same?
Well, I mean, part of it's just asking it for upfront and telling them why it's so necessary and why that, given the situation, given the perilousness of what we see in the world, not just in terms of climate change and the brutal murders of Black and brown youth in this country, but also nuclear war kind of peering on the edge of the horizon here. So I think that when people are looking for a way out, they have to see that, look, there's another way. You need to contribute to getting this, voice out so that more people can hear that there is another way. And I think that on top of that, my feeling is that if you really are serious, and people will take you as serious when you start asking them to donate and contribute. Because if you don't, they figure, there's no way you're going to do this. You're talking about a monumental task overthrowing this monster. There's no way you're going to do that without money. So when you ask and talk about, look, contributing to this is critical and you have a special role in making this happen. And then, challenging them. I think the challenging them and getting them to see the broader picture of what's really at stake and how much of a change this can make towards our goal by them contributing and getting BA's voice out, it can't be understated.
Phil, I think it's important that you said that if you don't ask, you're not going to get the funds and you're not going to be taken seriously. And so with this, I think we'll wrap this up for today. But you're not off the hook for the rest of season 4. We're going to be calling you back, not just about COVID and not just about fundraising, but about other things as well. So stay warm up there in New England, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So that brings us to the end of the 131st episode of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. And just apropos of our last segment, that we are still in the midst of a $100,000 fund drive, and we are at $62,000 and change, and we need to raise the balance of that by February 15th. So it's very important that people actually contribute now and get out there and organize, listening to and following some of the advice there of my friend, Dr. Phil Rice. And also, a key element of this fund drive is supporting this show by becoming a Patreon. You can find that right here on the RevCom's page on YouTube. So with that, and for myself and for the whole crew at the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, for all the guests we had on today's show, and especially for my co-host, Sunsara Taylor, I want to say good night. We'll see you next Thursday night at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night.